All right, everybody, welcome to the first official episode of The Hit with Higgins and Bonnie. I'm Higgins. That's Bonnie. We're going to be talking a little bit football today, and we're just going to dive right into the Steelers-Ravens game that just finished up about an hour ago. So, Bonnie, what were your thoughts on that game?
I didn't really watch it, obviously, because
That's right.
I'm in a little predicament for another day, another story. But I did catch the fourth quarter of it, and Trace McSorley, man, he looked great for his two
The
drives.
TikTok superstar going off late in the game. It's awesome.
Maybe Marquise Brown had a reason for complaining so much because he did catch. Four receptions for I don't know, maybe 80 yards and a touchdown. That's getting the job done. So maybe he has a right to complain. I don't know, but
No, the
yeah, I
kid,
thought
the
that.
guy's talented. I mean, they got to give him the ball.
Yeah, I do agree with that. But I don't. The Steelers, I didn't think they looked that great. Obviously, I think obviously it's been a really difficult week. The game being postponed three different times, but I think that's what championship teams do. They win no matter what the circumstances are. They come out, they come ready to play, and they win no matter how ugly or pretty it is. So
Mhm. I mean, yeah, Steelers, only undefeated team left. I mean, the Ravens had 22 guys missing. And that's the impact that COVID's had all year, that you're just going to have guys missing. And they've been hit harder than most with this pandemic. So to not have Lamar Jackson, you don't have Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins. So you're out there with Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. There's not a lot to work with. You don't have much going on. So just to be hanging in this game with an undefeated team like Pittsburgh, credit credit to them. There's no such thing as moral victories in the NFL, but you could count that as a moral victory for sure. But even
yeah, no,
comparing, sorry, no, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
no, I definitely agree with that. It's just considering the situation where they had a strength coach just not really following the rules at all, kind of jeopardizing basically like a huge game and a part of their season. Because if they win that game, with their schedule they have remaining left, it was like I think it was only the Browns was the only winning record, winning team that they were playing left. So they easily could have ran the table and possibly maybe maybe possibly win the division. Obviously the Steelers kind of had a little more difficult of a schedule, but they still had a pretty manageable schedule left. But yeah, if the Ravens they win this game, they could have made a huge run and win the North, which is obviously you would have got the second seed and played a team that would rather see possibly later on. So
Yeah, I mean, I think the North right now is definitely out of the question. I mean, Pittsburgh is running away with that division, but Baltimore, they're not in the playoffs right now. They're the eighth seed in or in the AFC. They're not in, so they need to get some wins in this later part of the season. Like it's very important because if they're not winning, they're not making it. And they're a talented team, and they're too talented to not be in the playoffs. So if your strength coach, like you said, is going to not follow protocol, not follow the rules, then you're going to end up in the situation where you're losing these games, and you can't be losing these games. I mean, obviously, if you're full strength, who knows what happens, because I'm sure Pittsburgh looked at it and said, oh, here's RG3, 8 years too late. Here's like this, basically your scrub team. I mean, they're NFL players, but these aren't players that are in the game most of the time. Not only Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins. You also don't have your two centers, your starter and your backup. You're missing guys all over the field. So you need this game. You need these players to be in there for you if you're going to make the playoffs. So it just goes to show you need to be following the rules right now, because if you're not, you're going to end up like Baltimore, and you'll end up like Denver, who, I mean, we
starting
could
a backup college quarterback
Kendall Hinton.
at Wake Forest. Come
I
on, man.
mean, listen, you know what? For everybody that thinks they can go out there and be an NFL quarterback, Kendall Hinton showed you why you just can't. I mean, a starting quarterback in high school and college, he's in the NFL as a receiver, but he's in the NFL. You can't just go out there and do it. You need so many other things besides even a little bit of talent. Like you need so much more. But and also props to that guy for going out there and doing that.
He was the real MVP this weekend, I think. Hell, that's one of the best defenses in the league playing against the Saints. Literally top to bottom. If you look at their front seven to the secondary, that team is legit. But yeah, I just think the NFL, how they handled this whole thing it looks very hypocritical from the outside. Obviously, with Denver, one guy tested positive for COVID and he blew up the whole locker room due to the contract tracing. But however, the Ravens strength and conditioning assistant coach, or whatever it was, comes in here, does not follow protocol, gets gets tested for COVID and they have a huge outbreak. I mean, and the NFL kind of just gives them a pass like 4 different times saying, hey, like, we move this game from Thursday night to Sunday to Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday. Like, pick your poison. Like, I think it's just very hypocritical. Obviously, both situations are different, and I understand why the NFL treated it how it was. But I mean, like, come on, like, if an NFL caring about its product so much, you probably should have moved that Denver Broncos and Saints game at least a day back.
Yeah,
I mean,
at least give him a chance to put Bortles out there. I mean, God, Blake Bortles on like a primetime game would be like every NFL fan's dream because you can't not love Blake Bortles.
I think
let's move on though. Let's move past the COVID stuff because it is still football season and we're enjoying it. Now, me and Bonnie are going to talk a little bit about some NFL teams. Are they contenders or are they pretenders? So we're going to start off right now with the Arizona Cardinals. They're in the thick of it in the NFC West. You know, they have young talent. Cliff Kingsbury has proven to be a solid NFL coach. Kyler Murray has been playing out of his mind this year. DeAndre Hopkins, who they stole from Houston, playing great. They're in the playoff hunt, but are they real or are they, just kind of hype right now? What do you think?
I think they're a year or two away from being really competitive, and I think really trying to make a run at the Super Bowl. Kyler Murray did not look good last Sunday against the Pats. Granted, he's hurt shoulder. You're throwing shoulder, so that's really important that you have healthy. But I just think that team's a year or two away. They're still very young in a lot of positions, and that NFC West is very competitive. And I mean, who knows if they're even making the playoffs out of that division? Because I mean, San Francisco, with the amount of injuries they've had, I think that team's probably they might make a run at it. I mean, there's a lot of teams in there that are good, but I think for right now they're pretenders. But I mean, if this was the next year or the year after that, I think they're going to be Super Bowl contenders.
Oh yeah, they're going to be contenders for the next 5-10 years. It's very, very possible. They have the young talent. You've seen what Kyler Murray can do. He's ridiculous. But I do think they are pieces away. Their line isn't great. The defense is average at best. So they're close. But also, you mentioned it. The NFC West is stacked this year. The Seahawks are probably going to win that division. If I had to put money on it, I'd say the Seahawks. The Rams are still tough. And like you said, the 49ers, with all the injuries they had, Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, they've done a great job coaching the team that they have, especially with the quarterback situation in flux right now. Nick Mullins is going out there winning games for them, which is huge. And I'm also a big Nick Mullins fan. Let it be known, huge Nick Mullins fan.
Fantastic. Not really, but his
not
defense
really.
made him out, but he got the job done.
It's credit to coaching, man. Say that. All right, let's move down the list. We talked about Baltimore a little bit, but let's go into Cleveland right now. So Cleveland, 8-3, first time they're not going to have a losing record since 2007, which is remarkable in its own right. Are they contenders or are they pretenders? Bonnie, what do you think?
They're pretenders. Baker Mayfield's the reason. He's against the good teams, he's not gotten it done. And until he proves any of us otherwise wrong, then they're pretenders. You need a quarterback to win the playoffs. It's that simple. Their team is so well built. Paul DeTesta, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, who's been there for a hot year. They've built a great team. A great team. I think Myles Garrett is a great piece. I mean, Taki and Mac Wilson as your middle linebackers have been very good. Denzel Ward out of the Ohio State University, he's turning out to be what they thought they would be. I mean, obviously, I don't know how great he is. I haven't really watched the Browns a lot, even though I'm from, Cleveland. Probably should watch them a little bit more. But their offensive line, Coughlin and Jedrick Wills, they hit on those in the offseason, which was a huge problem last year. Mm-hmm. They could not protect Baker Mayfield, but now he's got all the protection in the world, and I don't know if it's overconfidence. I don't know if it's his arm. I don't know if it's been the weather, but because it's been awful up here. Yeah. Even rainy days, snowy days.
Let it be known.
But I just don't think right now he's not good enough. He's not good enough to be on a playoff winning team or a Super Bowl winning team. He's just not good enough yet.
I know. Listen, totally agree. And also, just to speak to that Cleveland weather and the commitment to Bonnie doing this in the hotel room right now, it's awesome. But you're right. Baker Mayfield, the last 2 years has just been, not good. Really not good. I don't know how else to say it. He just hasn't been good, and it could be an overconfidence thing. And like you said, the talent around him on offense, on the line, You don't have OBJ anymore, but you have Jarvis Landry. Rashard Higgins is still a decent receiver. You have
Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt.
Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I mean, you have tight end Hooper, Harrison Bryant, who came on as a rookie this year. It's been great. The defense is solid. You have Myles Garrett, who's crushing it. They should be a contender. They should be. But it is Baker that's holding them back. And that's how it is a lot of the times with teams. I look back as a Jets fan, 2009, 2010, those teams were stacked, especially on defense. On the offensive line, too. They were great. But they had Mark Sanchez, so they weren't making it to the Super Bowl. And that is what I compare it to. You know, you have all the talent. You need that quarterback to get you over the hump. I mean, think about the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you can speak to it better than most being a Packers fan. Those teams didn't have talent for a while. They really didn't. The cupboard was bare, and they still made it into the playoffs, deep into the playoffs. So you need a quarterback. You do.
Yeah, in this league, a head coach, a very good head coach, and a very good quarterback can cover a multitude of sins. I think the Packers scheme, like just speaking to it, it's probably one of the best schemes in the NFL. I mean, it's what the 49ers use. It's what a little bit of the Rams. But, I mean, it's such a great scheme that they can get away with not having great wide receivers. They just can. And with Aaron Rodgers, how good he is, they get away with it. I think the Browns have found a head coach after Hugh Jackson and Freddie Kitchens. I mean, holy cow, man. Those guys were a little rough on the eye. And I think Kevin Stefanski has made Baker Mayfield better. I mean, I think he's not exposing his faults of – I think it's arm strength. I think accuracy has been in question. I mean, there was one throw, he should have made, and he even admitted himself, obviously, because, as a professional athlete, you know what's good and what's bad. But, Jarvis Landry was wide open. I mean, as wide open you could be in the NFL, you missed him high. I was like, come on, man, you're 3 yards away.
It was ridiculous. Oh, man. All right, let's talk about one more. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tampa Bay, 7-5 right now. Brian's shaking his head. I'm agreeing with that. They're absolutely pretenders. I mean, I respect Tom Brady so much for what he's done, for what he's continuing to do at such an old age, especially for an NFL player. They don't have it. They have talent all over the field, but they're not getting far.
I think it's a matter of scheme. Like, if you're Bruce Arians, please call short passes for Tom Brady. He's been doing it for 20 plus years, and he's won 6 Super Bowls. I mean, come on, dude. Stop making him throw deep balls that he obviously does not have the arm strength for, but you're not setting him up for success. Tom Brady's also at fault. He's not playing well. And he's honestly, those two guys are holding back their teams. I mean, that team has so much talent everywhere. I mean, we don't even have to go into it. I think everybody knows this team is ridiculously talented.
Just look at the receivers.
Godwin as your third receiver. It's nuts.
I mean, yeah, you have Godwin, you have Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, for God's sakes. I mean, he's a nutcase, but he's good. They're good, and
he gets the job done.
He does, and even on defense too. They're criminally underrated on defense. You have 2 good inside linebackers, Levante David, Devin White. Your corners and your safeties, basically your entire secondary is young, but very talented. You have JPP up front. You have Shaq Barrett up front. It's a good team. But yeah, you're right. Something's holding them back, whether it's Brady, whether it's Arians' offensive scheme, something. And they're not going to be playing in Tampa. It's the end of the year.
Yeah, all the glorified Twitter analysts like us, I mean, we're saying, oh, it's Brady's fault. And then you got Romo in here saying that it's Arians' fault for the scheme. I think it's both. I mean, I really do think it's both. It's just not a good match. They don't make sense together. It's just not. It's, as Colin Cowherd likes to say, it's just not a good marriage. It's not going to work out. And it's unfortunate because I think this team does deserve. This team is as talented as the Saints, as talented as team of any team in the league. But they're until Bruce Arians, which he's the coach, until he changes his scheme to what it should be, that's what great coaches do. They're not going to be successful. It's just, and it's unfortunate. They were great in the beginning of the season, and then they just fallen off.
It happens, and especially with someone who is 43 years old leading that team, it's going to happen. Especially as you get later in the year, production can fall off. It happens. So, all right,
teams get a better look at it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you see when you're on film, especially when it's kind of like a new nucleus of guys. No, I wouldn't say nucleus, but just a new dynamic. in there with Tom Brady instead of Jameis Winston, there's not going to be a lot of good film to watch. But as you get into the season more, you're watching film, you can exploit the weaknesses, and you go from there. I mean, look at what the Saints did to them on prime time. Ridiculous. That Saints team is good, but there's no way you should be losing like that. But let's move on though. Let's get into real quick. Let's get into our picks. Me and Bonnie picked our award leaders heading into the end of the season. Let's start with Offensive Player of the Year. Bonnie, who's your pick for Offensive Player of the Year?
I got Alvin Kamara. I think his impact on my fantasy team. No, I'm kidding. It's been great. But but in all seriousness,
Nice,
I mean, he's been a game changer. I mean, whoever has been at the quarterback position, I mean, I think he's really changed the game. I mean, he's made Drew Brees look great in terms of stats. I mean, he's got 585 yards rushing and 646 yards receiving. That's all. Obviously, if you can do math, that's over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. He scored a lot of touchdowns this season. I mean, if we can look it up here, I mean, he scored 12 touchdowns in 12 games, so he's averaging a touchdown a game. Impressive math again. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, I think he's played really well. I think he's made a lot of big plays. He's been a game changer for that team. Obviously, that team is first in the NFC, and a whole NFC, not the NFC East. I mean, they would have clinched the division if they were in the NFC East. But regardless, I mean, I think he's deserved it. I think he's just been making plays. I don't know. I mean, he's got to watch the tape. I mean, he's literally carrying that offense. I mean, because Drew Brees, obviously, his arm is a little limited too, kind of like Brady's, where he doesn't have the pop in it anymore. And I think he's been really crucial to that team's success on offense.
Absolutely. And to speak to that, I'm going to go with a different guy, other side of the league, Derrick Henry, Titans running back, 12 touchdowns this year, like your boy Kamara. He's leading the NFL in rushing. He makes that team so much better. And I think just if they don't have him, it's a totally different team. Tannehill has shown that he's better than we thought he was, but it's Derrick Henry's team, and they're going to go as far as he takes them. And they're 8-3, they're first place in the AFC South. They're looking for that number 2 seed more than likely. He's my pick. Let's go Defense Player of the Year. I picked Aaron Donald for obvious reasons. We don't have to go into it other than the fact that he's leading the NFL in sacks. But Bonnie, talk about your pick a little bit.
Yeah, so I picked TJ Watt, Wisconsin, obviously. Come on, I'm a little biased.
Have to.
But in all seriousness, I mean, he's 4th in the league in sacks with 9. I think he's probably playing on one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. The team's undefeated. I think media voters, I think they do put that into account. He's just been a really big defensive presence on that team. I mean, that team, he makes it way scarier. I mean, there's no time in the pocket when you play the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's a big reason for that. Obviously, he doesn't have probably the forced fumbles that Aaron Donald has, or he's not as valuable as Aaron Donald is to his team. But I mean, when you need a play, he always steps up and he's making plays, and he's been dominant. I think there's no other way. But
it says something to having that edge rusher. You know, great defenses have great edge rushers, and it speaks to how good he's been, how good that team's been. Absolutely. Let's get into the rookies a little bit. Almost Rookie of the Year, Bond. I think we both agreed, right? Justin Herbert for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you predicted us at the beginning of the season, I don't even think we would have thought Herbert.
Oh no, I would
top 5 in this.
Absolutely not. I would have been Burrow or Clyde, but no, it's running away Herbert. I mean, you can make the case too. Jefferson, Claypool, those guys have been crushing it. But
Antonio Gibson,
who crushing for my fantasy team, I love it. But there's something to be said about the quarterback. The quarterback reigns dominant in the NFL, and Herbert's been great. You know, just some stats on Herbert: 3,000 passing yards, almost exactly, 23 touchdowns. He's got a 100.9 QBR. I mean, he's on pace to shatter Baker Mayfield's rookie touchdown record. No question, he's going to break that record. He's just been ridiculously good, and it kind of speaks to the fact, we won't go into it too much, but how much they held him back at Oregon because no one thought he was capable of this coming into the league.
100%. I mean, obviously, when you play for an offensive line coach, you're going to run the ball. You're going to play kind of conservative. You're going to try and punch teams in the mouth, as I just did, kind of. But, yeah, I think Mario Cristobal, he really held him back. And we really didn't see this. We always saw at Oregon was kind of just his athleticism and his kind of raw ability to throw the ball. But, I mean, his arm strength, his arm is very, very strong. and he's accurate too. I mean, he's made a ton of plays on a team that's not very good right now. Obviously, coaching is I feel bad. I like Anthony Lynn, but I think he's gonna have to go. I mean,
Yeah.
if you watch the last 20 seconds of that game versus the Bills in the fourth quarter, that's all you need to know about the Chargers this year. Incompetence. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
What are you doing?
He'll be out of there as soon as the season's over for sure. But you know what? And that's another team though with a ton of talent. They're going to be good for the next couple of years, but you got to get Lynn out, get a new guy in there. Probably be an offensive mind for Herbert. Let's go down the board. Defense Player of the Year. Now for our picks, we went kind of the same direction. We both picked a safety from the NFC South. Different guys though. Talk a little bit about Antoine Winfield, Bond, your pick.
Yeah, so I think Antoine Winfield's obviously made a difference. He doesn't really have an interception this year. Well, he does have one against the Raiders, but I think he's been really solid in coverage. This class hasn't really been as great as we expected it, because honestly, if we would have predicted this at the end of the season, similar to like we wouldn't have expected Herbert to be in the Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Chase Young probably should have won this award by a million. Obviously, there's still games left, but I mean, I just think it's kind of just picking apples. I mean, there's not really a guy that's like, yeah, he's been fantastic.
No, there's no guy like that for sure. And yeah, I definitely would have picked Chase Young. I mean, he could still definitely win it. Like, he could win it. It's just, can he put up the production in the last couple of weeks? But my pick, so I picked Jeremy Chin, Southern Illinois, Carolina safety. Little bit of stats on him. 86 tackles. He's got 1 pick, 1 forced fumble. He's got 2 touchdowns on back-to-back plays, I should mention. That Carolina defense is young. I mean, they drafted every guy from this class on defense. Derek Brown, Jeremy Chin, Yetter Gross-Matos, like all defense. And he has been the difference maker, most impressive. I mean, he's leading that defense, especially on the back end. I think for me, it would be a no-brainer to go with him because just how much he's helped that defense transform and make Carolina relevant, because we didn't think they'd be relevant going into the season. I'm sure if you asked both of us, we would have said no way. But they've been good, especially without Christian McCaffrey. They've been good. But let's go down the board. Comeback Player of the Year, another pick we both agree on. I think every NFL fan and just fan of him would agree. Alex
Fan
Smith.
of adversity.
Oh my God. I mean, he should not be playing, let alone starting on a team that might be going to the playoffs this year. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, if you have time to watch Steady 60, I would definitely recommend it. It's very gross, but it's incredible. He's kind of gone through and he is and his family is mentally. I mean, it's literally the same day that Joe Theismann.
Yeah, right. Like the parallels
the same. I don't know if it's the same field, but I mean, it's the same team,
same field, same spot on the field.
Best defensive player does it to him. Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. Like the parallels are a little scary.
It's freaky. It's kind of like you ever hear like the JFK and Lincoln comparisons about them. That's like what this was. It was like same spot on the field, same stadium, same point in their careers. Lawrence Taylor, JJ Watt did it to him. It's crazy. Just for him to be at this level is remarkable. And props to him. You know,
that he's alive and walking, and you know,
he could have lost his leg.
Professional athlete.
It's incredible. All right, lastly, MVP picks. Brian, talk a little bit about your MVP pick, even though it's biased as hell, and I'm calling you out on it right now. It's very biased, but go ahead.
I got to represent the home team a little bit. I mean, after all, I do have like one share of stock in the team, but that's okay. Aaron Rodgers
doing this, man. So
Aaron Rodgers. I think he's been the best player. I think he's been the most valuable player in the NFL, probably for a very long time. He's bailed out a lot of holes in the Packers that I think a lot of people are like, no, this team should not be good. And he's continued to perform. His stats speak for itself. I mean, 33 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And I think he was leading the league in passer rating at one point, which was at an absurd clip. And the team, the Packers, they're competitive. They're winning. They're going to win the North. Their schedule is very easy on the way out. They could potentially maybe snag the 1 seed in the NFC, which was projected to be super competitive, and it still is, because who knows who's going to represent that conference. But I mean, I think the way he's done it too, they drafted Jordan Love. That kind of story, I think that little adds to the fire for journalists when they're going to like, oh, who do we vote for MVP? Everybody was saying this guy was washed, like he wasn't. He was done. I mean, he did not look good last year, and then this year, I mean, ever since really that second quarter of that first game against Minnesota, he's been incredible.
Yes.
I mean, just it's what he's done. I mean, with who he's had, obviously he's got Devontae Adams, who's a top 3 receiver in the league, undisputedly. But I mean, he's playing with a bunch of undrafted guys, and he's killing it. He's really doing a great job. I mean, the deep ball there, the accuracy's there. Him and LaFleur, they're buddies now, so that's great for a Packers fan. But they just look really good. I mean, he's playing at probably the best clip he's played at since probably 2012. And that Aaron Rodgers was people were saying was the greatest quarterback of all time. But there's a guy in Kansas City that probably he's probably going to be better. But
listen, everything you said is 1,000% true. He has nothing except Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. Other than that, there's nothing there. He drafted a guy in the first round to take his spot in the near future, which is ridiculous, and he's crushing it. But I'm going to go with the safe pick. I'm going to pick Patrick Mahomes. And it's a safe pick, but also he has 3,500 passing yards this year. He has a 30-2 touchdown interception ratio, 115 QBR. He's 10-1 with the Chiefs. I mean, they got a lot of talent, and I know that. Andy Reid's a great coach. There's no reason for him not to be successful, but he takes it to another level. And I'm picking him because I don't want him to fall victim to the LeBron James effect, where you're just so good that you have to raise your bar higher and higher and higher every year when you're still the most valuable player. I just think, no question. I think if you had asked me, best player in the NFL, for sure. So, but all right, we're gonna wrap up with our 10-pick mock draft. Me and Bonnie talked it over. Right now, as the draft order projects, this is who me and Bonnie think will go in these spots. So, Bonnie, you got first, number 1, New York Jets. Say what we all want to hear.
I think obviously they're going to pick Trevor Lawrence. He's been the best quarterback probably since he's stepped onto the campus of the Clemson. His arm, his raw ability. I think he's a little similar to Herbert. I think it's not maybe body type wise, maybe not the arm, but he's a winner. He plays on the best team. He wins. I think he's a leader. I think that's what the Jets need. Hopefully he comes out and doesn't stay extra year at Clemson to not make money and just not be playing for the Jets.
Listen,
but I mean,
if he decided to stay in school, which he won't, he will not. But if he decided he was staying in school, first of all, I'd lose my mind. But also, everyone's speaking to the fact that he won't come out and play for a bad team. No number 1 pick has ever been a good team. It just hasn't. Talk about last year with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and everyone's saying, oh, he's not going to come out. Cincinnati is a train wreck, which they are. But New York is in a good situation. They have over $90 million in cap space next year. They have 6 picks in the first 100 picks. They're firing Adam Gase. It's happening. Joe Douglas, in my opinion, is a great GM. I think they're going to be fine, especially with a guy like Trevor Lawrence. All right, but let's go. No, sorry, go ahead.
Definitely agree. I think one other thing to add is that he's probably the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck.
Oh, no question.
Just his natural ability, and he just wins. I mean, NFL is about winning games, and if you've only lost 1 game since probably middle school, I mean, you're probably gonna be the guy that's picked.
He has lost 3 games since he was a freshman in high school. That's it. 3 games since he was a freshman in high school. Can't wait for him to be in New York. I'm so excited. Number 2, it's my pick, Jacksonville Jaguars. I think another pick that's no question. It's going to be Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State. A little bit of numbers on Fields. He's got a 55-6 touchdown to interception ratio in his 2 years at Ohio State. I think every time he steps on the field, he is the most dominant player with his arm, with his legs, and even coming out of high school, him and Lawrence were the same recruiting class. Fields was higher for a reason, because he's a dynamic athlete. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's accurate. He makes smart decisions. I think if you're Jacksonville, you're not even that pissed off about not getting Trevor Lawrence, because you're getting a guy that's going to come into the building and change your entire program. It's not like Blake Bortles walking in there. Although we're fans, we love Blake Bortles, a different situation with him walking in there. I think, especially, and Jacksonville's not a bad situation either. They're going to have the cap space. They have picks, 2 first-round picks this year, like the Jets. They can rebuild that team, and a guy like Fields would be a great jumping point.
I guess the only knock on Justin Fields is really he hasn't looked good against great teams. Indiana, he didn't look good.
Mhm.
Obviously, COVID, weird year. I think Clemson, he looked good against Clemson, but I mean, I think there's a little knock around him that he hasn't looked great against, the great teams
Mhm.
in just college football. But yeah, I think if he's a guy you can't miss either. I mean, if Trevor Lawrence isn't coming out, I think he's one of the best prospects too that we've had in recent time too. So just
Mhm.
his ability to be a dual threat and just he's accurate
Absolutely.
most of the time.
All right. Number 3, Bond. All you. Who do you got? Cincinnati
First
Bengals.
tackle off the board, Penei Sewell, super sexy pick. Obviously going to make everybody go crazy, but I
Yeah.
think he's super athletic. Obviously, he's explosive. He's great off. He's a great finisher. Good lateral agility, which you do need as a tackle in the NFL. Because if you can't move, you can't really play. You're not going to be around. You're going to be considered like Greg Robinson, just a huge old bust. But yeah, I think he's probably the best tackle in the draft. I think probably by far. He plays at Oregon. He's getting coached by Mario Cristobal, as we
Yeah.
kind of mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
Offensive line guru,
A situation
obviously.
that's not good for Herbert. It's fantastic for Penei Sewell. No
Yeah,
question.
yeah, 100%. And I think there's a need for tackle, so for them to draft a tackle. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a pretty logical pick, and it's going to work out well.
Mhm. I mean, listen, they need to protect Burrow. I mean, he's already gotten hurt this year. He's out for the season. You need to protect him. And I think the only way you don't take Sewell here is if Burrow is like pounding the table for Jamar Chase, which is possible, but it's not really a need pick. Because even if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have AJ Green, you have Tyler Boyd, you have T. Higgins, you have guys there that can catch the ball. So I think it has to be no question Penei Sewell. Just protect Burrow. You need to protect him, you know? But here, let's go. Number 4, Dallas Cowboys right now projected number 4. I think they'll pick one of my favorite guys in the entire draft, Gregory Rousseau, defensive end Miami. The kid's an athletic freak. He's 6'7", 260. He had 15 and a half sacks last year as a redshirt freshman, only 1 sack behind Chase Young. He sat out the entire season because of COVID and to get ready for the draft. And I think what a lot of talent evaluators and GMs will look at when they see this guy, I think they'll see a 1-year type of guy, but who has just a ton of potential, and you put him on the other side of DeMarcus Lawrence. That's a pretty good tandem in Dallas, and Dallas has needs all across the board. They need secondary help. They need offensive line help for sure. But this kid would just be a difference maker, I think, from day one in that defense.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I definitely agree. I think the Cowboys are another team that will. They're. I think with this how the NFL kind of schedules their games, I think the Cowboys are probably going to be favorites. Maybe possibly be a second seed or first seed, just because of the schedule they're going to be playing. With Dak Prescott back, they're going to figure it out, and
mhm.
they're going to be a really good team next year.
Totally agree.
With
They have the
the
talent.
yeah yeah, so with the 5th pick, the Chargers, if they'll pick probably one of the best DBs, defensive players in the whole draft, Patrick Surtain. He's a sure tackler. He can cover. I mean, this guy's kind of got it all to be a cornerback in the NFL now. You have to be physical, you have to be long, you have to be super athletic, and you have to be kind of have an attitude and a swagger, which I think he does have. Just watching him in the Iron Bowl, I think one play that stood out was his play recognition when I think that Bo Nix threw a screen to one of the wide receivers. Obviously, it's Auburn. They're
Mhm.
not super great this year, but I mean, just the play
Still,
recognition he had, he plays fast, he plays hard, and that's something that really matters. And he's long and he's athletic, and it's just the prototypical kind of Alabama defensive back that
mhm.
you're not going to want to miss. Obviously, the Chargers, they have Casey Hayward still, but that team doesn't have a ton of holes, as we were kind of alluding to earlier. I mean, they have the quarterback, they have the running back, they have the wide receivers, they have a game changing safety in Derwin James whenever he's healthy. At least their front 4 is very good. They can get to the quarterback, they could cause pressure. So it's really just becoming a great defense, and great defenses have guys that can shut you down, and that's Patrick Surtain.
Absolutely. And just to speak to the fact that he's at Alabama with Nick Saban, who's a great defensive mind in his own right. His dad played in the NFL for a long time, Patrick Surtain Sr. Was a solid NFL player. So, like you said, he's long, he's rangy, he can make plays in the open field. And he definitely has the smarts to be a solid NFL corner. And the only reason I wouldn't see the Chargers taking Surtain here, which I believe they will, is if they wanted to go O-line with like Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech. That's the only other direction they'd go. I think it has to be O-line help for Herbert or to shore up that secondary because, like you said, they have Casey Hayward, they have Chris Harris in the back end of his career. They need help back there. But number 6, Philadelphia Eagles, a team with so many holes, just so bad this year. They walk up to the podium at number 6 and take Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State, hometown kid. He's from Harrisburg. Their linebackers have been just awful. I mean, they're starting a guy who just 3 years ago was the CFL MVP, and you know I love the CFL, but at the same time, it's just not the same. They need linebacker help, and Parsons would bring it to them. Parsons has 191 tackles in 2 years. He led Penn State in tackles as a freshman with 82, and he only started 1 game, which is remarkable. He's another guy who sat out the entire year because of COVID, but his talent is just too much to pass on right there, number 6, especially for a team like Philly that needs linebacker help desperately.
100% agree. Philadelphia, just a mess right now.
Just a mess.
If you're listening to like kind of like Louis Riddick and them, we're saying they're in a very dangerous spot. They're still in the race of the NFC East, but that team is awful.
I feel like you want to lose out. You need like those guys, you know?
You need a high draft pick. I mean, I don't know if it's ever since kind of that Super Bowl, they've kind of just been trending downward. And obviously that's kind of what happens when you win the Super Bowl. But I mean, you would have thought they would have been at least in the playoff. I mean, they are in the playoff hunt, but at least you'd expect them to have a winning record and Carson Wentz to look good. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows what's going on there? They got to figure it out.
They got to do something. And listen, Carson Wentz has not been good this year, but it's not all on him. And I know not everybody thinks that, but a lot of people do. It's not all on him. They have nothing around him. The defense has been less than good. So it's just they have so many holes to fill. But I mean, you know, they were in the playoffs 2 years after the Super Bowl. This is a down year, but they can still get in. You know, they're kind of like in limbo. It's kind of like, if you want to compare it to like the NBA, they're like the forever 8 seed. Like you're not going to get to the NBA Finals, but you're not getting a lot.
Not going to be terrible.
Yeah, so it's like, would you rather you got to do something to get out of there, whether it's get all the way up here or get all the way to the bottom, because you got to go somewhere. You know, it's the worst spot to be stuck in the middle. But let's move on. Number 7, Ubon, go ahead.
So the Carolina Panthers, they're going to take Caleb Farley, a cornerback out of Virginia Tech. Obviously, he opted out this year, so we really have not seen him play, since last year, frankly. He's 6'2", 207 pounds. He's big, athletic. He's strong. He's athletic. He's very quick. He's very good in man coverage, which it's a prerequisite if you're going to be a strong core in the NFL. I think he's a little bit similar probably to Surtain. I obviously personally have never watched him because, I don't watch Virginia Tech football. Sorry, but I'm not a big ACC football guy because there's 2 conferences and there's kind of Clemson and there's kind of everybody else. And maybe, you could count Oregon and USC and kind of everybody else. But yeah, so I think he's good in man coverage. He's obviously a smart player. I'm assuming he's got pretty good ball skills.
Yeah.
As a draft guy. So yeah, I think that makes sense for a Carolina team that needs defense. I mean, Jeremy Chin's obviously been a successful pick. So hey, maybe they'll strike again.
Yeah. Listen, when I watch Farley play, he's got ball skills. He's bigger. He's like 6'2". He can play. He can shut down receivers. And that secondary has been rebuilt, and they've gotten great production this year out of guys like Rasul Douglas, guys that like aren't top tier corners. They have Dante Jackson, so that's just one guy on one side. You put Farley on the other side, you're shutting down receivers, and then you have Chin on the back end. It's a good young secondary. So I think if he's there at number 7, I think they go up there and take him right away. Number 8. So I'm going to preface this by saying that this mock and our mock that we do is not who we want to go in these spots. It's who we think. I think number 8, Washington football team, if he's there, they're going to take Zach Wilson, quarterback BYU. If it were me, if I was running Washington, I would not touch Zach Wilson with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't, for a couple reasons. He's a 1-year guy at BYU. 1 year of solid production at BYU. 25 touchdowns, 2 picks. They're an undefeated team. And I think he's a good player. And I think if he were to go later in this draft, then absolutely. I think he could be a first-round talent. But at number 8, I don't know. But here's why I think they take number 8. He will be a 2-year starter coming out. He has the size. He has the arm strength. He's a little bit on the slighter side as far as build, but he's a tall kid. He's 6'3", 6'4". I think he projects as more of a conventional quarterback into the next level. I think that's what they'll end up doing. I prefer Trey Lance. I think he's incredible, but I think Washington needs a quarterback. I think Zach Wilson would be that pick for them, and then for Ron Rivera and that new regime over there in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, not a big West Coast football guy, so I haven't seen Zach Wilson play a lot, but I think they're gonna have to go quarterback here, and then you're gonna have to pick one or the other. And either Trey Lance, who's been successful at North Dakota State, just similar to like Carson Wentz, where he's won a lot of games, but you kind of question the competition level because it is FCS football. It's not the Power 5. I'm sorry to hurt any of those people that believe that like Division III sports is the same as Division I. Yeah, maybe the top part of it's as strong.
It's still D1 though. It's D1.
Yeah, it's still D1, but I mean, you're not playing. It's more of the consistency of who you play every week. Every team is good in the Power 5 conference. Even like the worst team, which is so unfortunately Penn State. Sorry, Nittany Lions fans, you guys are probably one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. But that team would still wipe probably not wipe the floor of North Dakota State, but I mean they probably beat them comfortably. I mean, it'd be interesting to see that game.
It would be.
I mean, FCS teams have beaten Big Ten schools. Appalachian State beat Michigan, but if we're gonna really be honest here, if they're gonna play 10 times, Penn State's probably gonna win 8 or 9 of these times.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And listen, I feel like it's not like a ton of people are watching this, but if someone were to go back and like 10 years later and Zach Wilson's like the stud QB and I just said I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, I'd get criticized for it. I don't see it yet. But I don't think it'd be the worst pick for Washington. If they think he fits their scheme, then go for it. Go for it. Let's move on. Number 9, OU.
Jamar Chase, LSU.
Where's Jamar going?
He's going to Detroit, the Lions. Obviously, they're probably going to pick a receiver because that's not the brightest organization we've seen around. But this guy is a stud. 84 catches last season, 780 yards, 20 touchdowns. That's kind of absurd. I mean, he obviously was playing with Joe Burrow. He opted out this year before any of this really ever happened because this guy would have been the first receiver taken last year. And that receiver class was extremely stacked. And this guy would have been picked first. He's a game changer. Him next to Kenny Galladay, they need a receiver. If you watch the Lions, they really don't have if Kenny's healthy, I mean, that's a great 1-2 punch. They have hit on wide receivers in the past with Calvin Johnson. So, yeah, I mean, with him and Matt Stafford, that offense gets significantly better.
And I think also, you mentioned Galladay. I think Galladay will end up walking because he's a free agent after this year. And I think he would ideally, I don't know Kenny Galladay, but I know the Detroit situation. I don't think he'd want to be in there. So I think if he has the opportunity, he'll walk. But even still, if he's there, if he's not there, Marvin Jones on the back end of 30, to add a guy like this for Matt Stafford or whoever's the quarterback next year for Detroit, I think it'll be Stafford, it would just change your offense because he is dynamic. Now, this is another guy I just mentioned, like with Zach Wilson, 1 year production, and he had Joe Burrow last year. We didn't see what he got to do this year with Miles Brennan, or I can't think of the TJ Finley, their freshman quarterback. You didn't get to see what he did with quarterbacks like that, but I think Stafford would get him the ball in Detroit, and it would just make a difference for sure for that offense.
Yeah, and I think another good point that you made is that he was around a ton of talent with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he also had Justin Jefferson, who's probably been the best rookie receiver we've had this year. Him or Chase Claypool, pick your poison. But I think with him, he's got great hands, and he works in the middle. He's got no fear, and you know what? He's probably the best receiver in this class. He was last year. So, yeah, he's going to cement a spot in the top 10.
Absolutely. All right, last pick. This will wrap up the show for the day. Number 10, Atlanta Falcons. Now, I had a hard time making this pick. I think it's either going to be two guys, Trey Lance or Kwity Paye, defensive end from Michigan. They have needed an edge rusher, but I think Kwity Paye kind of projects similarly body type and skill-wise to Takk McKinley. And we all know what happened with Takk McKinley in Atlanta. So I think if he's there, Matt Ryan's past 35. He's 36 years old. I think he could be out of there next year. Trey Lance, I think, would be a good pick for them to come in, run that offense. You have Julio for another year or two, Calvin Ridley, Gurley if he comes back, or whoever's in there running back. I think it would be a good pick for the future because I think now Atlanta's now looking towards the future. You're going to bring in a new coach next year. Why not pair him with a new quarterback, tie him at the hip, and see where it goes from there? I think it would be a good pick for them. And I mentioned he has, like Wilson, Trey Lance has 1 year of college production as redshirt freshman North Dakota State, which is D1 FCS. But he had 42 touchdowns combined, running and throwing, no picks, won every game, won a national championship, played one game this year, won the showcase game, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I think he has perhaps the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this class. And I think it would make sense for Atlanta to take him there.
Yeah, I agree. I think they have to go quarterback. Obviously, as you said, Matt Ryan's he's not getting younger any by the minute, and he's past this prime. I think there's gonna be a new coach, new GM, kind of new everything, a whole new reset for a team that honestly, they're 3 or 4 games away from like if they didn't blow those leads and tremendous classic Atlanta faction, that they could be in a playoff hunt. I mean, they really could be. That team's talented. They just beat the heck out of
themselves.
Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, they beat the crap out of them. That game was not close.
Oh yeah.
They wiped the floor with them, and
they beat themselves too much.
Yeah, and it's like they're their own worst enemy, and it's like they're so close to being there. I think a good cultural reset, and I think they'll be on their way. Obviously, that's a very difficult division because you still got Tom Brady and Drew Brees. But I mean, that's a division where it's like in the next 3 or 5 years, you can really take it and you can really go with it and run with it. And,
yeah, who knows where they're going to go? Especially like Tampa Bay could go way down. New Orleans, I think, will still be relevant as long as Peyton's there. They could go down. Carolina's on the upswing, so why not follow them? Get on the upswing. Especially, I mean, Matt Ryan hasn't been bad this year. He's 5th in the NFL in passing yards. He's just not winning games right now. And if you can get out of his contract, save some cap room, go with a young guy like Lance, it would make all the sense in the world, I think, if I'm running that team.
Yeah, the combination of injuries and just inexperience in the secondary, which that happens. I mean, you're gonna get beat by the good teams in the league or self-implode.
All right. Well, listen, that's gonna wrap up today's show of The Hit with Higgins and Bonnie. Zach Higgins, Andrew Boniface. Thank you guys for listening. This is our first go at it, so we appreciate you for sticking around. Bonnie, anything to say to anyone?
I'd just like to thank the foot of snow that we got in Cleveland, Ohio, for moving me into this great, comfortable hotel. And, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, Cleveland's the reason.
Gotta love the land, man. Gotta love it. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next time. Have a good one.